evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. This time I'd like to open the February 19th, 2013 Planning Board meeting. The first item on the agenda are minutes from February 12th. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, they haven't been sent out yet. They're still being drafted.
Okay.
I move that we table the minutes.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is an approval not required. It's in front of us here. It's by Mr. Malloy and Miss Tarita, by Christopher, the engineers Christopher Costa Associates. Is there someone here for the applicant? None. Okay, then are there any comments from the staff?
I can recommend your endorsement. It shows that 2 equal swaps of land. Parcels A and B are the same area, and parcels C and D are the same area.
Okay, then are there any questions from the board for the staff, since there's no one here for the applicant? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to endorse the approval not required for this particular plan.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. Tonight we have 2 public hearings. One hearing is for the annual Springtown meeting, zoning articles. And the second hearing is for the special Springtown meeting zoning articles. So I will open the hearings and close them separately. We will be taking testimony from the public, and we will not be discussing the articles. We will be discussing those at a future date,
March 5th. it
March
looks like.
5th. So you would be invited to come at that time and listen to our discussion if you so choose to. At this time, I will open the public hearing for the zoning articles of the annual Springtown meeting. There are 2 articles to be discussed, that we are taking testimony from. The first one is the wind energy system zoning article, which has been developed by the planning board for submission to this Springtown meeting. I have received, the planning board has received written testimony from one person about this article. And at this time, actually, I think I'll wait and read that into the record after I've taken testimony from the public. So at this time, I'm sorry, right, Jim, if you would read the notifications, please, Mr. Secretary.
In accordance with Section 5, Chapter 48, Mass General Law and Articles 43 of the Falmouth zoning bylaw, Falmouth Planning Board shall conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, February 19th, 2013 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall, 59 Town Hall Square, Falmouth, Mass. 02540, to discuss the following proposed amendments to the Falmouth zoning bylaw. These articles will be discussed tonight. They were published on February 1st, 2013, and also on February 5th. 17 abutters notices were sent by certified mail on February 1st, and 15 signed receipts were returned.
Thank you. So at this time, we will solicit comments from the public. If you would be kind enough to approach the podium, identify yourselves, and then make your comments.
Good evening. My name is Todd Drummy, Blacksmith Shop Road. I have two comments regarding the wind energy system bylaw. The first is in section 240-166, paragraph D, exceptions. Currently, it reads, any WES in existence as of the effective date of this article should be considered conforming and may apply for a special permit under this article to alter, modify, relocate, or otherwise make improvements consistent with Article 34. I suggest inserting the word lawfully between WES and the word in, so that it reads, any WES lawfully in existence as of the effective date. I think the meaning is clear from the exception. Obviously, you would not approve an illegal structure going into the future. But as everyone knows, there have been some gray zones in the current zoning law, and I thought that adding that word lawfully would make it perfectly clear that that is the intention of the bylaw. The second point regards the sound setback, which is in 240-166H, criteria for review. It's my understanding that the board, right now, the bylaw currently uses an 8 decibel level, and that level is determined via a computer modeling of the proposed project. And in the pages that I've just handed to you, I've given a couple of, I think, very good reasons why that figure of 8 should be lowered. As you know, the Mass DEP limits wind turbine noise to a maximum level, an Lmax of 10 decibels over ambient. And you have toned it down to 8 according to the modeling. And what I wanted to point out is that the modeling programs that are used for these projects do not report Lmax, which is what the DEP uses. They report what's called LEQ. It's more of an average sound level. We reviewed this in the wind turbine option process group, and we had a Centec, a professional noise consultant, run a model for the town turbines. And there were two things that he pointed out in his letter. Actually, the first thing I have in my packet there is 2 pages from the WindTop final report. This is on, so it's page 9 of that report, and I've highlighted the section that I wanted to point out to you, and I'll read it. This resulted in a comparison of L90 background to LEQ turbine sounds. In response to questions from the WTOP about the comparison between L90 background to Lmax turbine sound, Centec clarified that it is not possible to model Lmax because certified wind turbine sound levels are not available in terms of Lmax. Centec suggested that a prediction of L90 background to Lmax turbine sound could be estimated by adding 3 to 4 decibels to each number in the model. When asked, when asked their view, Mass DEP responded, the assumption that there may be 3 to 4 decibel addition may be correct in a side wind direction, but we think the correction is closer to 2 decibels in a downwind direction. So what that means is if the model comes up and says 8, it's very likely that Lmax is going to be 3 to 4 decibels higher than that. And if it was, so if your bylaw calls for an 8 decibel modeling number, then you're likely to have values when measured in the field of 12, which is going to be 2 decibels over the state limit. So I think you need to pull that number down. There's another page in your handout that's from that Ascentech report, and I highlight a passage there. The calculated wind turbine sound levels presented in this report represent equivalent continuous A-weighted sound levels expected under meteorological conditions favorable to sound propagation. Actual wind turbine sound levels during field operation can be expected to fluctuate somewhat above and below these calculated values. To address these fluctuations, the reader might want to consider periods when the calculated wind turbine sound increased background L90 by perhaps about 6 dB or more. I think what he's referring to there when he talks about the fluctuation of the turbine sound level is the amplitude modulation that I think the board's looked at and read about. You know, the meter says it's 8 decibels, but that's an average. There's peaks higher and lower than that. And so what Ascentech was suggesting was that, you know, if you look at 6 as an acceptable number, that's going to make sure you're not varying over 10 on the maximum peaks. He mentioned that before the discussion about the difference between Lmax and LEQ. And so I think those two things alone are justification to bring that modeling number, that target that you're looking for in the computer models, probably down to 5 decibels. And that would be what I'd like to see. On the back, there's a chart or a graph that's from the Ascentech report that actually is the result. You know, that's what the computer spits out from a modeling program. It's a little hard to see because it's been copied, but you can see there's rings going out from the turbine, and they're labeled 46, 44, 40, 38. And that's the sound power level being produced by the turbine. The model that Ascentech used, which is a very common turbine model, said at site LT1, which is on Blacksmith Shop Road, the value in a 12 meter per second wind should be about 38.5. Mass DEP measured the sound level, actual level, at that site in roughly a 12 meter per second wind, and their value was 50.5. And my point there is that the models are horribly inaccurate. And so anything you can do, I think, to bring that target number down in your bylaw is going to help ensure that we don't have problems in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next guy's ready, right? Good presentation.
Yes, sir.
Hi, it's Robbie Laird, Blacksmith Shop Road. I've got
I'm sorry, your name again, please?
Robbie Laird.
Mr. Laird?
Yep. Couple of comments, I'll try to keep them short. I know that you guys have tried to ensure that this rule applies to everyone, including the town of Falmouth. Based on listening to the town recently, I'm not sure the town will agree with that. I don't know really how you can fix that, but this is basically, it all comes down to the word all in a couple of the sections where the town feels that the word all municipal uses means they have by right permission to build anything that they want to, and they've stated this repeatedly very recently. And by virtue of that, I think they feel that everything else below that would be essentially bypassed. I'm not sure that you guys can fix that. I think you're creating a conflict, because if all means all, then you can't, it doesn't say all, except when something else is said, it says all. So I really don't know the answer to that, but I think it could be a potential problem. I think
Can
you're
you be
doing-
specific as to what parts of the bylaw you're referring to? Where the word "all" is used?
Well, in at least in 2 or 3 sections, it says, let's see, 240-30, permitted community service uses, section B. It says
240 what?
240-30. It's out of your section. It's out of what you guys are writing. So 240, it's 240-30, permitted community service uses, so that's the public use district. Under B, it says all municipal purposes, including the administration of government, and it goes on and on and on, but the town has stated that all means all.
So you're not talking about the wind turbine bylaw.
Well, but you have a section in the wind turbine bylaw that states, where you've got it in, I don't know if I wrote that part down. You said, under 240-166B, any provisions or requirements of this chapter to the contrary notwithstanding, wind energy systems as defined shall only be constructed or modified through a special permit issued by the planning board and special permit granting authority,
Right.
which I know is how you intend to regulate it. But what I'm saying, my experience with the town recently is that the town will claim that does not apply to them, and that unless the word "all" is removed from those other sections, that our present conflicts will continue. The conflict we're having right now with the town over the special permitting is based on that word "all."
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
This is beyond the scope of this, what we have. A different petition article would have had to have been presented to address this concern. This is well beyond the scope of this bylaw, a proposed bylaw.
okay.
Yeah, I
so
suspected
Mr.
that
Laird,
could be the case. I'm
if
just
you
saying
could-
that I think that you're being undermined, and I don't know
If you
how to
could
fix it.
stay specifically to this.
Okay, yeah, no
This
problem.
wind turbine bylaw.
I was going to suggest, on the sound also, I think I was going to suggest from 8 down to 6 on the decibels for the dBA scale. In my case, it's also because I know nobody wants to touch the low-frequency issues that have to do with the wind turbines, but even the dBA scale still becomes a proxy for what sorts of low-frequency sounds they put out. So if we lower the higher frequencies, we're probably lowering the lower frequencies sounds to some extent as well. And one other thing, I have a question about I'll see if you can tell me. You've grandfathered the existing turbines, which makes complete sense, but I'm not sure how the grandfathering completely works. So you've removed the section that the existing turbines have in terms of their mechanical inspection that's required. And I'm wondering, and maybe this is already fine, but I'm wondering if that particular section needs to be sort of re-included for the existing turbines. Basically, I think that they should not be excluded from the standard conditions, with the possible exception of the financial surety section, which is newer. But all the other stuff, that they have to keep them painted, that they have to maintain them, they have to have a inspection, I believe that should all apply to every turbine, and they had similar requirements before. I don't understand enough about grandfathering to understand whether the new things would apply in that one subsection.
So you're saying that you would like this bylaw to apply to existing turbines?
I think that 240-166K should apply to existing turbines.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else?
Are we also discussing the ban, the fallback?
No, that will be the
That's
second
other-
hearing
Okay,
tonight.
then I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments about this particular bylaw? Yes, sir.
Good evening. John Ford, Blacksmith Shop Road. Most of the comments I was going to make have already been addressed. But I will second Todd's suggestion of 5 decibels instead of the 8 decibels. And also, on page 5, under operating details, B, the very last line of that first paragraph, where it says along the property lines. Could you add along the property lines of abutters?
I don't see it.
Didn't see it.
5B,
At the end of B.
Yeah, page 5,
yeah, B,
operate, yeah, B, the last line,
oh,
that
property lines, yeah,
paragraph.
I see.
because the property lines is pretty vague, and I really don't,
Well, actually, this actually refers to the property line of the person who's installing the turbine, not, and nothing else.
well, it talks about sound impacts, and the sound impact within the property line of those who are installing their turbine, that's one thing. But if it has to do with sound, and we were trying to control that, I would think that using the property lines of the abutters would be significant.
Well, I can't envision a situation where the abutter's property line would be any different than the property line of the person who's installing it.
Okay,
I think those would be one and the same.
all right, all right.
At least that's my understanding. How about, does anybody else have a comment on that? Yes?
The only way it'd be different if there was a road in between, in which case this would be more stringent.
Did you
Yeah,
hear
in a
what he said?
situation
If
like
there was a
that-
road between the two properties,
Yes,
then this
This
would
is
be
more
even
stringent.
more stringent. In other words, the property of the
oh,
abutter
I
would
see,
be
okay,
even
yeah, yeah.
farther
All right,
away.
all right, very good.
Okay.
All right, thanks for clearing that up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Otherwise, I think it's a great job.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was the other concern?
Yes.
We'd have to have a different definition of abutter.
Mark Cool, Fire Tower Road, and I submitted today written testimony that I'll just briefly touch on. don't know
I
if
have that, and I
Oh,
intend
you
to
do.
read it, but if you would like to read it, you may.
I'll just touch on it.
Okay.
I mean, for the benefit of the rest of the members, my question is concerning the sound impact analysis, which I highlighted 240-166F and 240-166H. My concern, well, let me just, I'll start reading a little bit. March 13, 2012, the Planning Board and the Health Board convened a joint meeting addressing jurisdictional authority as the Planning Board began the rewrite of the wind turbine bylaw. Prior to that, February 7th meeting, planning members unanimously agreed that wind turbine noise, infrasound, and vibrations were components of a nuisance condition. The highlighted sections that I had previously mentioned, there's no reference in the sound impact analysis that identifies evaluation of low-frequency infrasound or vibrations. I'm curious as to why that is, for one, and the reason I'm curious is the state expert panel, their report came out last January 19th, I believe. In their report regarding wind turbine effect on health, recommended that a difference between A-weighted and C-weighted sound should be part of a noise guidance specifications. The Falmouth Board of Health, in an official correspondence with the Mass DEP and the Mass DPH, recommended and has urged these agencies to adopt an interim regulatory criteria to provide guidance to local boards with regard to the C weighting. So basically, I'm curious why in the sound impact analysis there's no requirement. There's a requirement for A decibels, but not C. A weighted noise examination is included in the sound impact analysis. And planning board members unanimously agreed that wind turbine noise can be a nuisance. Although frequency and vibration noise are elements of noise more accurately weighed by C weighting examination. So that would be my question. Why isn't C part of the sound impact analysis? And I'll await the discussion on March 5th, you said?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you also said you had comments on paragraph H.
That is H.
Yeah, paragraph H and paragraph F basically referenced the sound impact analysis, in which, they give, but not limited to the following items, and they list the things, and then in H, the setbacks, they talk about A weighting, and they talk about pure tones. And the reason I bring that and put that in my written testimony is I wanted to show you that nowhere in there, and I'm sure you're aware, there's no mention or reference any to C weighting.
Okay.
Whereas on February 7th, 2012, the board agreed that vibration, infrasound, and from turbine noise were components of nuisance.
Right. Okay,
So that was the point that I'm trying to make.
got it.
And
Thank
that's
you.
it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But it is a good bylaw, better than what we have.
Further comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none, then at this time, we will move on to the second article for the annual town meeting, and that is a zoning article concerning 10 County Road zoning change. Is there someone here from the, for the opponent of the zoning change? No.
Leave this one open still?
Yeah, this is still open. Yep. Jim. There are two, this one and this one for the spring. Okay. Two. For the record, this is a petition article brought by citizens and not by the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst, members of the board. I'm Bob Ament. I'm a Falmouth resident and an attorney. My office is here in Town Hall Square. And I represent the applicants, the owners of the property in question, 10 County Road. And they are Kristen Heisler, who is here. She owns the property in a trustee capacity with her husband, Ken. And the other owners are Lisa Kenny and her husband, Paul Luligo, who also own the property in a trustee capacity. They bought the property just last year. They are principals, Kristen and Lisa, are principals of Real Estate Associates, which is a real estate brokerage firm that, as Real Estate Associates, has been in business in North Falmouth and elsewhere in Falmouth for approximately 40 years. And principals of Real Estate Associates began that company after being in the business since the 1950s. So we're dealing with business people with long ties to the community in a 60-year-old business. And the reason for the purchase of the property, which on this plan is shown in yellow, was to allow the construction of a new real estate office. Now, presently, Real Estate Associates is in a building catty corner across the corner next to the pizza shop, right here.
Mr. Ament, before you go on, could you tell us what those roads are? 'Cause
Yes, thank you very much, sure. So this is Route 28A, This is County Road.
Yeah.
Of course, County Road becomes Route 151, going east.
We're talking about a property that's on the corner of Old Main and County, is that correct?
No, we're talking about a property that is right here at the east side of the railroad tracks.
Oh, that's a Pine Street or something?
Well, this is Pine Street on the other side of the railroad tracks, to the west.
Okay,
So,
I'm trying to visualize where that is.
in recent years,
Oh, that's the railroad tracks, in other words?
these are the railroad tracks.
Okay, I got you, I got you. All right,
In
I'm
recent
there.
years, the planning board has spent a fair amount of time studying this corner. A lot of the attention has been focused with potential rezonings to the east. In this reddish-pink color, is that called magenta? I'm not sure. I've indicated Business 2 zoning, the pizza restaurant, the real estate office, another restaurant across the corner. In blue, I've indicated the light industrial area that extends to the north. Dean's Market, the Silver Square shopping center up here. This property at 13 County Road, I believe, has a cleaners and an antique shop in it. Light industrial, Business 2, Business 2. This vacant parcel of about 1 2/3 acres was Business 2. Some years ago, it was rezoned Business 3. Someday, something will get built there. But the proponents of this article purchased this residential zone property, as I said, to construct a real estate office on. And they've had Holmes and McGrath just do some sketches to show what they might be able to put here. It's blown up here, and you can see how it would nicely lay out for an office building with sufficient parking. Now, there's a house on the site now. The house was built about 100 years ago. Kristen described it to me as being lightly structured. Apparently, there isn't a lot of good support in it, and its systems are almost all at the end of their life. The proposal would probably be to take that house down and build something new, namely that real estate office. Now, property ought to be zoned for its best and most appropriate use. Here we have a property that is surrounded by business property and across the street from light industrial property. There's no residential abutter. Railroad tracks that are served or serve the trash train are the immediate abutter, and the bicycle path is on the other side. So there's a lot of non-residential activity abutting the property. The property was on the market for a long time, and there were no people interested in buying it to renovate the property and use it as a residence. And so Lisa and Kristen stepped in with their husbands and bought the property. They really want to be have their office in North Falmouth, and they for real estate people have been renting, it seems to me, for a very, very long time, and they saw this as an opportunity to improve that property. It's certainly not spot zoning to change the zoning. Quite the contrary. It seems that the residential zone of this particular piece isn't the appropriate zoning. It's almost reverse spot zoning. It ought to be business zoning, and we've proposed that it be the most restrictive form of business zoning. That is Business 3, like the property next to it, that it abuts, so that there cannot be fast food without special permit. There can't be any business greater than 4,000 square feet in size. A number of restrictions that apply would still apply to this, but don't apply across the street, wouldn't apply to the Business 2 district. asking for the least expansive business zoning for that property. This is basically the North Falmouth Village Center. I mean, yes, down at County Road, that's a village center, if you will, but this is a commercial center of the area. Our population increases, and we rarely actually have increase in the amount of business-owned property that's available. This is a natural location to be able to have a business 3 type use. Could be something different than an office building, that's true. But what these people want to use it for is their business office. It could be a professional office. It's a relatively small site, about 1/3 of an acre, but it's perfectly adequate, as indicated here, for the use that they propose to make of it. If you have any questions, now would be the time to ask me or to ask Kristen. And I'd point out that 2 members of her family, her children, are both involved in the business, and they're here, Ken Heisler Jr. and Martina Heisler. So it's another generation of Falmouth people.
Okay, if there are any questions for clarification from the board, we're not discussing the merits of it, but any questions concerning the presentation by Mr. Ahmet? Yes, Doug?
So your article only deals with just the one lot?
Yes, it's the only lot that isn't zoned for business or in industry on this
Right.
corner.
It doesn't...
Doesn't change this at all. This is already business 3.
Right.
It just makes it the same.
So when you made mention of the other properties, you're just explaining what's there.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. I think that this stands by itself as a very reasonable, very small extension of the business district. It does not come with all of the freight and issues related to what to do with the big parking lot over here, what to do with the property developed down the street, all those things. And my hope is that this very appropriate zoning change doesn't get caught up in the relatively recent history of the last several years, when it's not been possible really to come up with an acceptable, comprehensive plan for the for this corner. And maybe that's something that should happen going forward, but that's not what we're here for. So I hope that especially since I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, that there are any other zoning articles being proposed for the April town meetings that affect this corner, which is sort of different than in a number of years. But I don't think there are, and I hope that this just stands by itself as something different. Thanks.
Any other questions? At this time, if there's any comments from the public, please approach the podium and identify yourselves and give us your thoughts. Seeing none and hearing none, thank you, Mr. Ahmet. Thank you for coming. So that concludes the zoning articles for the annual spring town meeting. So at this time, I will close the hearing for the annual spring town meeting, and I will open the public hearing for the special spring town meeting, of which there are three zoning changes proposed. Mr. Secretary.
In accordance with Section 5, Chapter 48 of Massachusetts General Law, Article 43 of the Falmouth zoning bylaw, the Falmouth Planning Board shall conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, February 19th, 2013 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall at 59 Town Hall Square, Falmouth, Mass. 02540, to discuss the following amendments to the zoning bylaw. Abutters notices were sent by certified mail on January 29th, and 10 were sent and 9 were received returned.
Okay, thank you. The first article, zoning article to be considered tonight in this public hearing is the windmill, which is the current bylaw, windmill bylaw moratorium. And this is an article presented by the planning,
It's not a moratorium.
It's a ban.
It's a prohibition.
I'm sorry, the agenda says moratorium.
No, that's on marijuana.
The medical marijuana is a moratorium?
Well, not well, I'm sorry, but my copy says, and I got it electronically, and I didn't take, if it's been changed without my being notified, then I apologize, but the word moratorium is on my agenda.
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry, I apologize. That was an error that we corrected before we posted the final agenda.
So what is the word?
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
Yeah.
Okay. It's always nice to remember that we're not perfect. And I want the public to know that. Okay, I'm sorry. The first item to be discussed for the special Springtown meeting is the windmill prohibition article, which is being brought to town meeting by the planning board in the event that the article about our wind turbine bylaw, which will be on the annual Springtown meeting, is not passed. So this is a backup article on our part to prevent any more windmills from being developed in town should our bylaw not be approved by town meeting. So at this time, I would solicit comments from the public concerning this article. And if hopefully everybody has had access to this article. It's been on our website, I know, and it's been, we've held hearings on this before. So if anyone would like to approach the podium and make comments on this, prohibition of future development of windmills, please do so at this time.
Hi, Robbie Laird, Blacksmith Shop Road again. I completely support this. I just wanted to make one or two comments. I'm hoping that this doesn't get out of hand, that there are probably, people may show up who see a ban on wind turbines as a good thing, and they might try to promote the article sort of separately as though it's an actual ban on wind turbines, rather than what I see it as it's a technical issue that can only be dealt with this way. And at the same time, there will also be people possibly who will discuss the ban in terms of the opposite side, where people who want to have windmills will look at this as people who are against them being against them. And I think it's important to make sure that you guys continue to point out that this is strictly a technical issue, that it's the only way we can solve the problem of the moratorium running out. And that I just want to make sure. So who's ever listening, I think it's important, and that's my understanding of it, and I think that's what it is, so, thank you.
All right, sir, thank you. Other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, we will go on to the second.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, you have some written comments?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, excuse me, I do. Thank you. There are two written comments submitted to be read into the record on the special town, on this particular article, special town meeting. And I will read them. One is from Mr. Mark Cool to myself and the planning board. Dear Chairman Herbst and the planning board members, Article 7, wind turbine bylaw, wind energy systems is not adopted, if it is not adopted at the annual town meeting. It's crucial that Article 2 becomes the fallback position. I believe the wind turbine bylaw, Article 34, has flaws, but is exceedingly more effective than the old windmill bylaw. It is because of this reason, if the new wind turbine bylaw does not pass, I will fully support special town meeting Article 2. Respectfully submitted, Mark Cool. The second correspondence that's been submitted in reference to this this bylaw is from Kristen Mortz. Dear Planning Board, I was very concerned to read in today's Falmouth Enterprise News, FENT, Falmouth Enterprise
Yeah, Falmouth
newspaper, what? What's T? I don't know. Anyway, Falmouth Enterprise, that you are discussing an article for town meeting which is a backup total ban of turbines if your new bylaw does not pass. That seems like blackmail to me. That would be much too extreme and force the vote on your bylaw in a direction which people might not want, just to keep the option of turbine construction open in Falmouth. Why not allow the vote to be on the merits of your new bylaw rather than use blackmail on residents? I urge you to drop the ban article. Falmouth will be known nationwide as a completely regressive town with no concern at all for building our renewable energy options. I don't understand how you can take such extreme actions and urge you to reconsider. This is only for your eyes, although I know it will be in the public record. But please do not forward, as I have been harassed badly by the turbine opponents for my support of the town's attempt to run them. Sincerely, Kristen Mortz, residents. Well, I'm sorry, but if I have to read it into the record, then it is a public record, and it is, it has been exposed. So that's the extent of the written comments for this particular article. Yes, sure.
Robbie Laird. Well, that sort of makes my point. I guess I would stress again that we point out that we can remove this article in any continuing year, correct? I don't know if I'm allowed to give you questions, but it's intended as a placeholder. It's not intended as a permanent ban. That is my understanding of this, and it appears that needs to be promoted, and I'm thankful if you guys would do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification?
Yes.
This bylaw cannot say that, because we've already had our one moratorium.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Just to clarify what we're talking about here.
You will note, however, that the bylaw, this proposed bylaw references Section 340A of the general laws, and there are exceptions where agricultural, nonprofit, educational, and religious organizations could possibly have a windmill. Okay. The second article is one proposed by the planning board. And it concerns the marijuana treatment center issue. The state has, the state voted, the citizens of the state voted to allow medical marijuana treatment. And our bylaw is placing a moratorium on the development of a medical marijuana treatment center here in Falmouth until April 30th of 2014, or if this article is repealed prior to that, whichever occurs first. So at this time, I will solicit comments on this article. Please approach the podium and identify yourselves. Seeing and hearing none, then we will move on to the next article for the special town meeting, 56 Scranton Avenue zoning change.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have to recuse myself. I actually represent the applicant in leasing the space, and I've had to have conversations with his counsel regarding this issue, so I
All right, sir.
have to leave.
Is there someone here for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, as you know, I'm Bob Ament, Falmouth attorney, and I represent the applicant. The applicant is Falmouth Heights Marina, Inc. It's a Massachusetts corporation that owns the property in question at 56 Scranton Avenue. The general manager of the company is Mark Jones, who is here. And Falmouth Heights Marina, Inc. is affiliated companies include the marina to the south on Scranton Avenue, where the Edgartown Ferry runs from, and the other property on Scranton Avenue that they have an interest in. The property is at the corner of Scranton Avenue and Robbins Road. And I've indicated it on this plan. It's in green right there. I used blue to show the marine zone. And this is the marine zone in this property that we wish to rezone. It's presently part of the marine zone. The marine zone continues on the other side. This area of residential zone here, and then it becomes marine again. At the town marina, that's zone public use. And then to the south, almost to Clinton Avenue, it resumes marine zoning. In the magenta color, across both streets from 56 Scranton Avenue is Business 2 zoning. Windfall Market, motels. And then all along Main Street, both sides of the street, we have business redevelopment zoning put into effect not too many years ago, except where town property, which is public use, and there's a cemetery over here. So the proposal before you is to take this building out of the marine zone. Some of you may have long memories, not that long. All we got to do is go back to 2008, 2009. That's not long at all for some of you. And for others of you, you're not familiar with this. But in 2008, we made a similar request. We said there are 3 properties in the marine zone that surrounds the inner harbor that aren't on the water. One of them is Park Cleaners, which I think is right here. One of them is an office building behind McDougal's, a little farther down the map than this shows. And the third one is 56 Grand Avenue, which used to be Gun and Tackle, now has a real estate office, Kinlan Grover. There's a raw bar restaurant that opened a couple of years ago in the back. Now, what's the problem with marine zoning? Well, for these property owners, it's the fact that no more than 50% of the floor area of the building can be rented for a non-marine dependent use. I had to check, certainly should have, but I don't think we actually define marine dependent use. Maybe you know otherwise, but I don't think we've got that defined in our bylaw. But, so what does it mean? It's a yacht brokerage, which shows people pictures of yachts that could be anywhere on Main Street or in the area. I guess that's that marine dependent use. I think West Marine does just as well across the street in the Business 2 district as they would do on the business, on the marine side. But it would seem to be that marina zoning, marine district zoning, must have something to do with being on the water. And in fact, I don't think there are any marine districts in Falmouth where the property isn't on the water. And we have 3 small lots, including this one, that aren't on the water. Now, park cleaners, 100% of the building is used for park cleaners. They're totally non-conforming, pre-existing use. They want to change the use, they're going to be able to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they'll be able to, they won't have to comply with the 50% limitation. I believe the same is true of the property on the other side of the harbor. But this property was where Gun and Tackle was, and so they were a sports outfit and they sold marine-related things. Now it's most of the building, and there was a yacht brokerage in the building as well, and they're gone. And to try to have to lease the property only to a marine-dependent tenant is an unreasonable restriction that makes no sense, given the fact that this is not waterfront property. I'm sure I mentioned that this property with the green, that's public use. You see the PU on the plan, that's public use, that's town-owned property. So the town controls access to the water over there. So we presently have a substantial portion of the building that is vacant, and efforts to find a marine tenant, marine-related tenant, are really hit and miss, because there's nothing special about this property that would lead a marine-related tenant to say they needed to be here as opposed to somewhere else nearby. Because we offer nothing special in terms of being on water. In fact, it's a lot that's mostly been developed over the years, relatively small area of parking. The uses actually depend on parking in the common ownership across the street. So, in 2008, we asked to rezone all 3 of those properties. And we went to town meeting and we had a lot of discussion. I have correspondence, I'm going to give you a copy because I just wanted in your file, it relates to it, correspondence with the then chairman, Ed Kirkland, explaining the problem created by the restrictions of marine zoning on a non-waterfront property. And the planning board agreed to do something about it. But they wanted to do it in a comprehensive manner. They wanted to look at the zoning around it and do something in the nature of business redevelopment as was done on Main Street, to try to improve the likelihood of economic rebirth and improvement around the harbor. I believe that The town planner had a draft of an article. My notes indicate he sent it to me. I sent him some suggestions. He said he would be in favor of reducing the restrictions, perhaps by special permit, even in the marine district, to allow you not to have to meet the 50% marine dependent use for a non-waterfront property. We had provisions in there that had to do, well, what if somebody tried to create a non-waterfront property by removing the waterfront? I mean, we had provisions in there that were to address that. And we were told, just being unsuccessful at the November 2008 meeting, that the earliest something could come back before town meeting would be the fall of 2009. That's what the correspondence I have shows. Well, it's now the spring of 2013. We haven't rezoned the property. The problem hasn't gone away. And we feel that it's totally reasonable to take this non-waterfront property out of the Marine District and put it into a business use. The town planner recommended, for purposes of this article, that we specify that be business redevelopment. So the article requests that this property become the business redevelopment. Right across the street from other business property and near business redevelopment. Now let's talk for a second about spot zoning. We're taking this lot out of the marine zone of the spot zoning. And the answer is I don't think so. The spot zoning is when similarly situated property that's not distinguishable from other property is changed for the benefit of an owner and not for a public benefit. That's what spot zoning is. You can have a small piece of property that's rezoned. It's not illegal spot zoning if there's a public purpose of it, if the property can be distinguished. This property can easily be distinguished from the other property. It doesn't have waterfront. It's not appropriate to be marine zone. Whereas all the other properties in question, except for Park Cleaner, they could, 3 years ago we included them. I went and talked to the owner of Park Cleaner this time, and he said, we're totally grandfathered. So there's a distinction. We're okay with this bylaw because we're totally grandfathered, but not 56 Granite Avenue. So I want to give you, for your record, and I've pretty much gone through what it says, the correspondence I sent to Mrs. Kerfoot as chair of the board in October of 2008, and then after town meeting didn't rezone the property, a letter in December of 2008 saying, you know, we have an urgent problem here. And to wait another year is a problem for us. And well, we were able to get the uses that are there, and now, and the remaining yacht brokerage is gone. So now we have the problem again. And with the correspondence I gave to Pat Kerfoot back then, I included some pages from the Massachusetts Continuing Legal Education Zoning Manual that just discuss spot zoning. I'll tell you what I just said. And it is not spot zoning to change this because it's appropriate to, there's a reason that it would be different from the adjacent property. So here's that correspondence for your record, which you can review before you vote on this matter, and spot zoning text. And I think that's about it. Be happy to answer your questions.
One question, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this parcel that you're talking about had already been created as a separate parcel before the marine zone went in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Paul?
The area in green seems to indicate access to the harbor. Is that true?
No, there's no access to the property.
Looks like it's
from the
green.
property. But I prepared this plan, and if it's confusing, I apologize. The intention was to use a color, happened to be green.
I'm referring to the green area. Isn't there a green area coming down?
No, this is part of the town-owned public use.
Okay.
We don't front on the,
It was small, I couldn't see it.
on the
No, that's fine. Thank you. Looks like it was an access route, green.
Well, it's not an access route from this property. The town owns a driveway and controls the driveway, and we can't use it for commercial purposes.
Other comments or questions for Mr. Ahmed?
No.
All right, then I will solicit comments from the public.
Doesn't look like it's an access from here.
But I know what the property looks like.
Mr. Jones just points out to me that the purpose clause of the Marine District bylaw starts out by saying it's to preserve and protect uses which are dependent on access to marine and tidal waters. And we don't have any access associated with this property, and we don't have any uses that, therefore can't have uses which are dependent on access. It just doesn't make sense. Now, you could say, yeah, but it could be added to the next property. This is a piece of property that's already totally developed. Our issue is that we have commercial space inside the building, which we can't rent unless the right marine-dependent tenant comes along. Why would anybody who's dependent on access to the water come along and want to rent this property, which doesn't provide the access? It just doesn't make sense. And I think that 4 or 5 years has been long enough for the town to do something about it, and a simple solution is to just put this in business redevelopment. Thank you.
Comments from the public? Hearing none and seeing none, I will then close the hearing for the special spring town meeting. We thank you, the presenters, for coming. We will be taking this, we will be discussing these articles on March 5th. Okay, the next item on the agenda is
Did you say March 5th or 6th?
5th.
March 5. March 5. Discussion, tonight, the town planner was planning to give us a briefing on special permits, since some of the planning board members haven't been through that process yet, but he was not able to do that tonight, so he will reschedule that for us. Next item on the agenda are releases. I don't believe there are any. Committee reports, the local plan committee. Pat?
Okay. As you know, we finished up with the economic sustainability portion. The only thing yet to be done is the introduction on that. But the action items, all of that has been done. And you voted on what's going to be presented before town meeting. So we're moving on now. And the next two, we're going to be taking up our land use and the housing elements. As you may recall, the housing element in the current comprehensive plan is affordable housing. But in discussion that the three of us have had, we've determined that really the issue is far more than just affordable housing. This is not to exclude affordable, but we have many other demographic groups that we need to look at appropriate housing for. We've got an increasingly elderly population. So we're looking at it as housing, not just affordable housing. That's one change. The other thing is too that and we'd love your comments on that, but the other thing that really has to do with the planning board is land use. And we're asking you to put your thinking caps on. and think about how you would like to see us zone for land use looking way ahead into the future. What would you like this town to look like, to give us sort of goals to look at and ways to handle this in this element? And that's what we're asking you to do, because this is distinctly a planning board article here for the local plan. We don't have anybody else that we can draw on. It is our thing that we do here. So we're going to be leaning on you a good bit heavily as we go along to give us your input. And that's my request and report tonight.
Are you planning to bring these two up and have them available for consideration at the fall town meeting?
We have never put arbitrary goals on this. When they are ready, then we will bring them in.
Okay.
I think it is going to be premature to bring these two to the fall town meeting. It's more likely that we might make something for spring.
Okay.
With these.
All righty. Any other comments, any other committee reports? Well, none that are listed. New business, items that you would like to see in the future agenda? Hearing none. Correspondence, I don't believe there's any additional correspondence.
No.
All right, then at this time, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.